One of the biggest disconnects I see often with other comic shops, and I've talked about this on Facebook groups, I've given this advice to other shop owners, is to lean more into the creative team. And a lot of shops don't do this, and it's not as hard as you think. What do I mean by that? I'll explain. And I'm also curious from a reader perspective, from a buyer perspective, how much this would impact you or help. Hey everybody, this is Perch. This is one of those kind of like shop hacks ideas. Shop hack, I don't know, whatever. It's one of those ideas that I've given to people before, and I see almost always positive results from it. I also find that it helps you order. If you're a shop owner, it dramatically helps you figure out kind of what's going to sell through on your shelf. But it's one that's rarely utilized. Now, why is that? Well, the simple answer is people are busy. They get busy and they just don't have time to do what I'm going to describe. But I actually think it's not that hard. I don't think it takes anywhere close to the amount of time that people think. So here's the basic premise. By the way, as I lay this out, I'm really curious for people who are customers to tell me how much this would impact them. However, my suspicion is most of the people who are coming to this channel, listening to this, are probably pretty savvy about comics. They've been longtime collectors. This information they probably already have. So it might not impact you, but I ask you to kind of put your head in the perspective of, somebody new, somebody a little bit more casual, etc. So it's this. Comics, even though, yes, people come in and they show up to buy Batman, they show up to buy Spider-Man, they know the big characters and they know what to look for. A lot of purchases of comics are based on the creative team, the writer, or frankly, I think a little bit more, the artist. If suddenly we know that Todd McFarlane is drawing an issue of Spawn, he doesn't draw all those, he's not a regular artist anymore, then people are more likely to buy it. If suddenly like Mark Silvestri came in to do a 4-issue run on, you name it, pick the comic, again, I think that people are going to show up to buy that because he's a name that draws customers. Well, the other thing is a lot of up and coming artists come onto the scene. Many of them are on titles that maybe nobody knows, nobody has paid attention to, and it makes sense for those creators. They go on to another title, and you almost have to point them. Hey, did you like? I mean, who knows? Did you like, Ron Lim over here? That's a terrible example because it's been a long time ago. You like Mark Bagley? Well, Mark Bagley is now doing, this Superman book over here. You know him from Spider-Man, but it's Mark Bagley, the guy who did Spider-Man. And when you put your comics up on the shelf, nearly every single store that has a kind of shelf of new comics, the comics just go up there fairly randomly. Sometimes they're alphabetized, sometimes they're put in by company. More often than not, what I see is just like the newest comics go toward the top and the older comics kind of migrate down toward the bottom. And there's really no clear rhyme or reason behind how the comics are placed on the shelves. They're just kind of up there. And when you talk to shop owners, a lot of the times you get the feedback of, the comics come in a box, and then it's like a frantic, how quickly can I put them onto the shelf, and then get on with whatever I was doing. And there's not a big rhyme or reason to it. Um, you can always tell, by the way, a store that's more organized or less organized by kind of how those new comics are getting put up on the shelf. And a lot of them do it, again, very poorly. But what would be super, super helpful is in many cases, the comic rack itself is metal. There is a place where sometimes the comic shops will put up a little like a sticker or a magnet, little thing that says new this week. Now, that alone is a huge, huge help. A lot of people are coming in. They want to know what's new this week. They want to see it at a glance. And if you've got something that's removable, you can just pop on the shelf. It makes for a much better, much cleaner buying experience. But the next step with that, and again, you see it very, very few places, is labeling the comics that are done by the more notable creators. If Jim Lee is doing some bit of interior, you got a little nameplate that says featuring art by Jim Lee. You pop that right next to the new comics, and it's a big help for people who are kind of scanning the shelves and seeing who is this creative team. I think that this is more valuable today than it was, say, 10 years ago, because the creative teams are kind of all over the place. Ed McGuinness like drops by every now and then to do some issues of the Avengers. You, as a shop, sell more of those copies, but not if your customers aren't aware that he's on it. And so having some little label, because you can't trust the covers at all anymore. I mean, if you were just trusting the covers, then like Alex Ross would be doing like half the comics, and then a couple by J. Scott Campbell and some others in there. But that kind of stuff helps immensely. Now things like death metal, everybody knows Greg Capullo's on that. It's an event, makes sense. We haven't quite gotten to the point yet where everybody just assumes that the event artist is random from issue to issue. Thankfully, that doesn't happen too often. But for the regular ongoing titles, what I hear from a lot of comic shop owners is it's hard to get people kind of connected and attached and know when a new storyline is kicking in, etc. So simply branding them new, that's a good start, or start of an arc, that's another good one, or this comic is done by Scott Snyder. I mean, or if you want to take it even further, this comic has art by Ed McGuinness, who you might remember from Batman, Superman. I don't know, wherever you might remember Ed McGuinness from. That you can, first of all, you can reuse those. You can print a bunch of them up. You can pop them on the shelf when the issue sells through. You move them on. You wait, and weeks, months, whatever it takes later, you can pop that back on again. It's giving the consumer, the customer coming in the door, a little bit more information. And once you've gone through the work of printing these labels up in the first place, because you can reuse them, it's not that time consuming. You put the comic up, you pop a little label there on the shelf next to it. It's a big deal. It really, really does help. And I mentioned at the beginning, it helps store owners figure out what they can sell through. If they've got more confidence that they're putting a title up and people are going to recognize the fact that, say Ed McGuinness is on this issue of the Avengers, well, then they can order more, they can promote it easily, and they can have a little bit more confidence that it's going to sell through in the shop, as opposed to, kind of randomly just picking an issue. You start to play smarter business with the creators involved. And I think it always helps. So I've recommended this to stores in the past. Usually the pushback is I'm too busy. I'm way too busy to do that kind of stuff. And my answer to that is, again, it's not as hard as you think. Once you put your labels up, once you've created the way for this to work, and granted that may be a solid couple hours of getting all this stuff made, it can go very, very fast. But the information you're giving your consumers is high. And it starts to give you more control over what's going on the shelf. You have control over what's going on in a pull box, but on the shelf, it's still a bit of the Wild West. Customers are coming in, they're pulling stuff off. You're hoping stuff is selling, etc. You're not going to be able to stand there next to the shelf and say, "Hey, that issue over there, that one, Ramos is drawing that one, so you probably want that one. It's not a fill-in artist. It's back to Ramos." You don't have time to make those kind of conversations. You're not going to engage your customers, purchase by purchase that way. So it just becomes a smart, clever way to manage your inventory. Customers tend to like it because they feel like when they're coming in, they're not just presented with a wall of comics. They're actually given some guidance and some help. So when I've talked in the past about comic shops turning into more of a experiential experience zone for customers, this is the kind of thing that helps. I mean, I at one point would put up labels saying, here is this issue of the Hulk. I remember is drawn by Mark Silvestri. Mark Silvestri, artist of X-Men or Uncanny X-Men, a couple other things, and I would point, you can find those issues in the back, in the back issues area. And so you can wind up not just selling a comic with more information that's new, you can wind up reminding your customers like, hey, if you like this artist, there's more back in the back over there. Or even if they've already bought the issue, it's another pointer to like, hey, you're interested in some Silvestri art? Well, check this stuff out. And again, it goes to, for some people on the internet, hardcore fans, collectors, we know all this stuff. This isn't news to us. But if you're a hardcore collector, you are typically, you have a pull box. So, this feature isn't for you. It's for the other people, and you are trying to maximize the business you're making off of comics. So this kind of stuff just goes a long way to do that. So that's my advice. That's my suggestion. If you're a comic shop, again, don't be daunted by it's a lot of work. It's really not. It's really not a lot of work at all. You can easily wrap your arms around it and have a pretty good result. But I recommend it. Easy to do. Try it out. Your customers are going to love it, even if they don't. Even if they know the information's already there. It just kind of shows that you care. And if you do it right, it's so quick for you to put up. It has the perception of being a lot of work of really kind of managing your comics and providing some good information to new comic fans. But you may be spending an extra 5 minutes when you're putting the new comics out. That's it. And so the benefit as a shop you get is huge. Not that hard, even home done or handmade. It's still worth doing. Give it a shot and see if it works for you. What do you think? As a shop, would this help? As a customer, would you like this? Are you in the position of like, I know it's in the comics already, shut up already? I mean, is that you? That's okay too. Give me a comment, let me know below. Like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Follow me on social media, send me an email. Most importantly, thanks for listening.